if you've ever gone to a doctor before and have been incredibly frustrated because of their limited options of what they're recommending due to the fact that they are constrained by what the insurance company will reimburse them for, essentially that there is a middleman between you and your doctor telling the doctor what they can and cannot do, making your medical decisions for you. I've experienced that on both ends of the spectrum, both as a clinician and as a patient, and it's horrible. And just imagine if you're the doctor who got into this business to help people, wants to help people, and yet their medical practice profits are maybe 3% a year if they're lucky, because the insurance companies not only are dictating what the doctor can do, but are also dictating what they're going to pay the doctor. They've spent decades in school, they want to earn a great living. They want to be with their families. They want to enjoy what they've committed their life to, and too often they're just incredibly stressed. So today, I'm really happy to be talking with Matthew Gillogly. He's the founder and CEO of Mavericks, and he's helping doctors get their lives back. He's helping them understand what they can do to serve patients better while not sacrificing their own lives for that. Thank you so much for being here today.
You got it, John. I'm looking forward to this. This will be great.
What got you into this?
Um, it's really funny. I am a serial entrepreneur, and in 2014, I opened up a cash practice at erectile dysfunction clinic in Charlotte, North Carolina. All cash, no insurance, and we grew that to 3 locations in 18 months. And then I sold those in 2017. And what really blew me away is, I originally went in and I'm like, oh, doctors are horrible business people. They don't know what the hell they're doing. Just let them practice medicine. And as we went along, I realized how hurt these doctors felt because no one was really taking them seriously. Here are people that, for the general public, I don't think the general public really understands what medical professionals, providers go through. And when I'm saying providers, I mean doctors, DOs, NPs, naturopath, PAs, like everybody, what they sacrifice. On the top end, medical, doctors, DOs are spending 12 years in school. They basically sacrifice their 20s to go through medical school, residency, fellowship. They come out at 32, 33 years old, and they have $250,000 to $500,000 of debt. And they come out and they realize they went to medical school to to serve humankind, and they can't do it. And so when I started realizing how badly these doctors were being abused, and they're being abused, um, and how little the system cares about them, I began this process of realizing that if we can return healthcare back to where it should be, it's a relationship between the patient and the physician, and eliminate time constraints and eliminate um, the bureaucrat in a cube in an insurance company making healthcare decisions, that we can actually positively impact the long-term health of our country. And when you look at our country, we spend 3 to 4 times more than any other industrialized nation, but yet our health results are declining. In fact, I think the average lifespan has declined 5 years. Our current generation is actually facing a shorter lifespan than the generation of you and I. And there's a lot to that, and I'll pause there because I could just start going, John, right? Like you could just tee me off, right? Like, but there's a lot of reasons why. And all I will say is that if we think that we're going to be able to fix the problem by screaming to the insurance companies, we're vastly wrong. Um, and we're here to free 100,000 doctors because we believe healthcare should be back between the patient and the doctor.
And that's such a sacred relationship. I mean,
Oh
people
my God.
people
Yes.
tell us that the most intimate details of their lives, and even if we know, with absolute certainty what should be done to help
Hmm.
them, suddenly there's a bureaucrat that's telling us no,
Yeah.
that doesn't know the patient, doesn't know the situation. We're trained to make decisions, and then if you're taking an insurance-based practice, those decisions are extremely limited, not based on medicine, by the way, based primarily on cost savings. And
Hmm.
yes, insurance companies do look at efficacy, but they are probably at least a decade behind the curve. They are trailing behind the most recent advances, especially if you talk about like regenerative injections, ability to inject, non-toxic substances into joints and ligaments and literally regrow the connective tissue.
Yeah.
I mean, I was doing that in my practice 20 years ago,
Hmm.
and they still won't pay for it.
And I hope they never do because they'll screw it up, by the way. Right?
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, one of the challenges too with that is that the the insurance companies, they will pay for really really expensive procedures, but they won't pay for the preventative health care that can keep somebody from ever needing that. It's another problem. So yeah, it's incredibly frustrating. And in conversations with your doctors, what do they tell you? I mean, because I'm sure they open up to you just like a patient would
Oh,
open up to a doctor.
God, you should. Yeah, I'm their doctor, right? And they're my patient. So
Yeah.
I was at dinner last night with Dr. Osh Goyle and his wife, Nikki. I live in Scottsdale, Arizona, just moved here a couple months ago. They're here, they're longtime clients. And Osh was so excited because in June of this, well, we're in June, by the end of June. So um, he will be completely out of insurance. It's taken him 18 months and his business has grown. And his patients are gladly and happily paying him cash for everything, office visits, everything. And he said, "It's great, Matt. I now see, instead of seeing 60 patients in a day, where I could only spend 7 minutes with them, on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I see about 20 patients in the day, 20 to 25. Those are kind of because he's in pain management, but does regenerative, does like spine and back and kind of stuff like that. And he said, it's great. I get to spend like 15, 20, and these are follow-ups. He goes, I get to spend like 15, 20 minutes with them, sometimes a little bit longer, and people are happy and they come in and they're excited to see my team. And to me, that's what healthcare should be. The doctors are so burnt out. Again, I know a lot of people that listen to this are common patients, so I want really people to understand what your doctor has gone through. They have been basically groomed by the insurance industry and the medical establishment for them to become cogs in the wheel. They don't want to spend 7 minutes with you. They want to spend 30 minutes with you. They want to be able to go over your full medical history. They want to spend time with you and really dive into your issues. They want to be able to give you a real plan of attack to be able to fix, say, your joint pain or your menopause issues or whatever. And the environment that exists today is designed specifically to keep the doctors so busy so that they have zero opportunity with which to think on their own and create plans. Now, John, you're free of it, right? You've been free of it for forever, right? So that's kind of like if you really understand what has gone on in America with our health insurance companies, most people do not realize United Healthcare made $49 billion last year in profit. They are
Unbelievable.
the 10th, they are in the top 10 market cap companies in the United States. To put this into perspective for people that are listening, this top 10 market cap, the other companies are Amazon, Tesla, Walmart, Microsoft, Nvidia. Okay. These are Facebook. They make so much money. The top five health insurance providers in the United States control 90 to 95% of all healthcare in the United States. They are no different, by the way, than the five families of the New York Mafia. And the Gambino crime family, which is the largest in the heyday of the New York Mafia, is United Healthcare. They do not care at all about your health. They don't care about the opinion of the doctors. These are publicly traded companies that care about one thing and one thing only: profits. And when the Affordable Care Act came into place, when Obamacare came into place in 2010, it completely handed over all of the health care to those top five companies. And if you look at what's happened in this consolidation, people are like, oh, well, the affordable health care, it's been planned, it's been great. Rates have decreased, or they haven't been going, they stopped going up as much as they were. Yeah, but look at what's happened to profits. What's happened is your coverages have reduced, your fees have gone up. So they're making more and more profitability. And I'm not even going to go into like all the stuff that they do with like the pharmacy benefit managers and all the money that they make, because people think, well, gosh, wouldn't the health insurance companies want you to be healthy? They go, no, because they own the pharmacy benefit managers, which basically negotiate prices on what you're going to be paying. And they make money on that. That's an annuity. They want to get you on a statin as quickly as possible. They make more money as a pharmacy benefit manager than they do as a health insurance company.
Well, and the
And
and
so,
the and the model, the model, and I think a lot of people didn't realize this when it was passed, of the Affordable Care Act actually incentivized them to charge more money, because the amount of money that insurance companies can
profit.
spend on overhead and executive salaries is capped. The amount they are mandated to spend a certain percentage on patient care, and so in order for their executives to pay their executives more, their staff more, to get a bigger return on investment for their shareholders, they are incentivized to actually continue to raise their
Mhm.
fees.
Yeah. People don't realize, that's a great point. They made this whole big deal. The progressives are like, press progressive wing of that negotiation. And this is not bashing them, but they're like, okay, we're going to cap the profits of the health insurance companies at 10%. Woo, way to go. Right. We got capitalism in check. But again, what they didn't realize is that if I had $100 million in revenue and I can only profit 10%, which is 10 million, and my bonus is paid by driving profitability, if I make $1 billion in top line revenue, then I make $100 million in profit. So there's no incentive. There's zero incentive. The only incentive is for, if you look at what has happened to healthcare in our country in 2010, since 2010, is we effectively created an Americanized capitalistic version of a single payer system, but there's five people that control the market. Those five people make so much money they can buy any politician that they want. All you have to do is go look at how much money they give. And then on top of that, people are like, oh, the big bad pharmaceutical companies, they have zero control. The health insurance companies drive the entire conversation in this country. When I play a lot of golf, right? Now I'm new to Scottsdale, so I'll go out and I'll just randomly connect with some guys, and invariably on the third, fourth hole, what do you do for a living? And I tell them, and they go, well, why would patients want to pay direct? Why would a doctor? I thought a doctor was making a killing. I go, okay, great. I said, let's say that you're an orthopedic surgeon and you're doing an ACL reconstructive surgery. What do you think the doctor's getting paid for that ACL reconstructive surgery? And they go 5,000, 8,000, right? You know, John, right? $750. That is the average amount that a doctor is paid for an ACL reconstructive surgery.
I had no
That
idea.
isn't that insane? That includes 30 days of pre-op, 60 days of post-op follow-up, and they have to have an NP and or an PA in the surgery room, and they have to pay that. The orthopedic surgeon gets paid effectively $28 an hour for their work for doing an ACL reconstructive surgery. That is almost as much as somebody that it's pretty soon in the next 4 years, it's going to eclipse. You can make more work in a front desk at a fast food joint than an orthopedic surgeon can make per hour. And so what
Wow.
do they have to do? They've got to do volume. What happens with
Right.
volume? They work insane number of hours. What happens when you're really, really tired? Mistakes happen. I
Mistakes.
don't, right, right. You know this, John, right? Like you, I'm preaching to the choir, right?
Yeah.
Like, and when people are like, oh, my OBGYN did a C-section because they get paid so much more for a C-section. I'm like, great. You want to know how much they get paid for a vaginal delivery? No, $500. You want to know how much they get paid on average for a C-section? Oh, they got to get paid like 6 grand. I go, try 600. And that includes a 17 and a half year look back on the malpractice. That kid goes postal when they're 17 and a half and shoots up someplace. And guess what? If they find out that forceps were used during the delivery, they're going to sue the doctor. And they're not going to sue the hospital, by the way. They'll try, but they're going to sue the doctor. So the doctor has all the risks. So think about this. Again, for the patients, think about this. So the doctor knows what needs to be done. Let's just use an orthopedic surgeon. Let's just use like pain management doctor, right? They know that there's these other modalities out there with regards to PRP, stem cells, things of that nature, and they know the right path, right? These are highly educated people. These are some of the best and brightest of our industry, of our society. And we basically marginalize their brilliance. And they know what they're supposed to do, right? They know what's in the best interest of the patient. But the health insurance company comes back and says, no, you can't do that. Well, who has the risk, John? Who has the liability? The doctor does. Because most people don't realize is that there's broad immunity, there's a blanket immunity that exists for all the pharmaceutical companies. You can't sue them because of their blanket immunity given to them by the Reagan administration. You can try, right? And then the health insurance companies have a pretty broad scope of general immunity. So, and plus they're multi-billion-dollar corporations, so they can just kick the can down the road while the doctor is the one that gets sacrificed. So basically what has happened in this country is we've taken the most important part of healthcare and we've diminished them to almost something nothing.
Well, and even
And
when
it's sad.
doctors are in, group practices, or part of a larger organization, they can be categorized as independent contractors.
Yep.
So they have to have their own liability. I mean, they have to have their own liability insurance anyway. But there's a level of indemnification between them and the hospital or the owner of the practice, which is, puts the liability again on the clinician's
Yeah.
shoulders. But with respect to how medicine is being practiced, one of the things that shocked me when I learned this is the tiered pricing structure that exists. So if I go to a lab, or to a radiology department and say, I want to order a CT scan or I want to order some blood work. There's a cash price. If you get their price list, literally three columns, there's a cash price, for a clinician, if you're billing the practice directly, there is a patient cash price, and then there's an insurance price, and they're all different numbers. And the insurance price is the highest one of all because they know that the insurance company is going to mark that down. They're not going to get 100%. So it's this big shell game where the insurance says, we're going to charge $1,000 or whatever it is for this test or this imaging. We're gonna bill the insurance company $1,000. The insurance company comes back and, making up the numbers, but let's say that, well, we're gonna pay $300, and so then the patient is on the hook for some amount of that difference, and then the rest just gets written off on their taxes and written down to reduce their tax burden, and it's all just phantom money. It's not even a real bill because it's just automatic discounting of the total price.
Yeah, and the individual provider, by the way, doesn't get to write that bad debt off. The hospitals do.
Yeah.
The individual provider, the clinician does not. So, people, it's really kind of disgusting to me what has happened because what has really happened is, like, think about this. You've been a lawyer for 30 years, okay? And you've been to Harvard, you're top in your class, you go and you train with some of the other best lawyers, and after 30 years, you can charge $750, $2,000, $3,000 an hour, and people can choose to use you. In medicine, I have a doctor, client, Dr. Mark Petropoli, Syracuse undergrad, Syracuse med school, top in his class, residency, went and fellowed for Dr. Andrews. For people that don't know, Dr. Andrews is in Birmingham, Alabama, basically created the ACL reconstructive surgery. Any athlete that you know probably had a surgery done by Dr. Andrews, was Dr. Andrews' top fellow. Mark is 56, 57 years old, and he's paid the same amount for a surgery that somebody who just came out of medical school does as an orthopedic surgeon.
Unbelievable. Not
Isn't that just
surprised,
like,
but unbelievable.
I mean, so the doctor doesn't get to control their pricing, and people are like, oh, well, that's good because the doctors are greedy. They're not greedy. They've been portrayed by Hollywood as greedy. These are some of the most compassionate people in the world that you would ever meet. Like John, I mean, you love humankind, right? You got into medicine because you wanted to help people feel better, right? Like, isn't that what, I mean, that's why most of my doctors get in and they're not able to do it. They're not able to do the thing that they want. And then the patients start taking it out on them, thinking they're the ones that are the problem, and they're not. It's the health insurance companies are behind the screen like the Wizard of Oz saying Omaha, right? They can't even, and they're calling all the shots.
Well, and
And
if look,
there's no input.
if it resulted in superior healthcare and superior outcomes, that would be one thing. But as you said at the very beginning of this, it doesn't. And that's not just opinion. I mean, the facts report that. I mean, decreases in longevity, in lifespan. Heart attacks are the number one killer still in this country, despite the fact that they are completely preventable in the vast majority of patients. People are not getting the health care they need, and ending up with type 2 diabetes and then not getting the medicine they need. I had patients that are rationing their medications. They're like, okay, which medication can I afford this month, or skipping doses because they couldn't afford it. And there are patients who end up that are using the emergency room department as their primary care doctor because they can't afford just to go to their primary care doctor. So this incredible burden that it's having financially, is incredible inefficiencies working its way through our system. It doesn't just hurt individual patients; it hurts all of us. And these inefficiencies are built into the incentive model and the legal model that exists, that is continuing to push our medical system down this path. I think it was Senator Hawley. I watched a an interview, not an interview. He was grilling essentially or asking questions of one of the insurance executives at a congressional hearing.
Mhm.
And essentially, he made it sound, exactly, similar to what you were saying at the beginning, that it's a monopoly. It should be considered an illegal monopoly. Now, you talked about the
Absolutely.
Gambino family and a crime family. I want to be clear. Those are brutal families that were murdering people and doing extortion and all of that. I don't think that it's that's what you're talking about, but I do agree that there are people who are being harmed by the system and people who are dying because they can't afford chemotherapy, people who are dying because they can't get into a doctor or can't afford the treatments that are
Mhm.
not experimental even. And that's the tragedy of our current system. And you're passionate about your mission right now, and what you're doing is helping to solve this problem by freeing doctors up so they
Yes.
can do what they were trained to do with patients, so they can do what they're passionate about.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
So our mission at Mavericks is very straightforward. Is we're here to lead the exodus of 100,000 doctors worldwide from insurance-based care into cash-based services. Now, at the beginning level of that, somebody might sit there and think, "Oh, great, doctors are going to be healthcare is going to get even more expensive." That's actually not true. So the United States government said that 60% of American families have what's considered a quality healthcare plan. I don't know really what they consider a quality healthcare plan, but
Yeah,
let's
that'd
just
be
go
interesting.
along. Like there's a whole bit you could do on that, right? Okay. The average out of pocket in 2023 for the American family that has a quality healthcare plan after insurance premiums is $16,500. Okay.
Wow.
Now, let's just say that you have knee pain. And so you go to the orthopedic surgeon, you go to the pain management person, and what do? They go, well, we're going to give you physical therapy. We're going to have you come in. We're going to do nerve blocks. We'll do cortisone shots. Okay. And the reason why that's happening is every single day that the health insurance company doesn't have to pay for that knee replacement or the surgery or whatever, the more money that they make so much money on the float, meaning how much cash they have in the bank every single day, what's called overnight funds. They make so much money from that it's in their best interest to not pay. Okay. So what happens is that the patient, and this is really typical. So the patient has to go see the doctor. They book their appointment. They wait 2 to 3 weeks to get in. They have to take time off from work. They drive 30 minutes to go see the doctor. They check in. By the time they check in, wait to be called back, stand on the scale, get their blood pressure done, sit in the room and wait for the doctor to come in, the doctor to spend their time with them, and then check out. The average amount of time that an American spends per office visit is 45 minutes. Okay. Then they have to drive 30 minutes back to work. So at a total, they're spending almost a half a day of their workday going back and forth to the doctor. Now, the problem is that the doctor says, do this and come back and see me in 6 weeks. Well, the American patient thinks, oh, the doctor's making all this money on me coming in. They're not. They make like $29 to $49 on your office visit. So what's happening is that the system is designed specifically, one, to make as much profit as possible for the health insurance companies. But what we see in our company is that we see an injustice because the patient can't get their health care. That doctor isn't talking to you about options for you to reduce the weight that you put on, the extra 30 pounds, because they're not really allowed to talk about those things because that's not in their purview, right? And health insurance won't cover those things. And so what happens is we wind up with us freeing 100,000 doctors, we know that we can improve the health of 100 million people worldwide. Now,
Amazing.
what does that do to our society? Think about this. We spend $4 trillion a year in our country and our budget of the United States government. We spend $4 trillion a year in healthcare and we're getting worse results. And by the way, we have a $2 trillion deficit every single year. What if we can just improve the healthcare of our people? Maybe we can save $1 trillion in the budget. Maybe we could even get to a place where we save $2 trillion and we're not adding on to the deficit of our country and hurting our grandchildren and our children. Like, this is a major issue in our country. And we believe that the best thing that we can do is teach doctors about business so that they can have control over their patient care.
Well, and on that note, you mentioned the premiums. I've got so we're a family of four.
Hmm.
My son's off at college, so he's on the college health insurance. But just for my daughter and my wife and I, with most of the, by the way, the healthcare that we do is out of pocket, integrative medicine.
Hmm.
And so that doesn't even go through the insurance company. So those are all added costs. But just paying our premiums, it's about $2,800 a month,
Yeah.
$2,700 a month times 12 months plus a $10,000 deductible on top of that. And so it's which we've never met. You know, like we've never maxed out. We've never met our deductible. So all these years doing it, we're just piling all this money into the insurance company, literally without any benefit. It is the worst business model for consumers that I've ever been a part of, and frankly feel forced to be a part of. I mean, that was
Mhm.
one of the lawsuits against the ACA years ago. Is you're going to force consumers to purchase a product, and that I don't know why that got thrown out, why it didn't. Like, and I'm a big believer that everybody should have healthcare. I'm a
Mhm.
big believer. I think there should be a like a Medicare styled plan program in the United States for all Americans. That
Yes.
that doesn't change the fact that you still have in other countries where you have this, people have universal access to healthcare, you still have cash-based practices that give superior care because there's always going to be inefficiencies in government. But you've
Yep.
got to be able to have, people who aren't using the ER for diabetes care, people who aren't going in with gangrene in their leg because they didn't get the primary care they should have gotten, and they've got, advanced uncontrolled blood sugar issues that are now requiring hospitalization that could have been totally prevented. And so when you're looking at these doctors and they start learning about what you do and the system that you train them. I'm curious. I kind of get this image in my head of like this, somebody who's been like PTSD, who's been in a very abusive relationship for all these years, me coming out and being like, oh my God, what have I just gone through?
It's actually one of the analogies that I use, and that is the doctor is no different now than the wife that's in the abusive relationship and won't leave. Because, you know, I hate to be so graphic, but it really paints the picture, right? You have this woman, she's with this guy, and he winds up abusing her physically, emotionally, whatever it is. And, she can be lying in the hospital recovering from her injuries and be like, oh, he just showed up with flowers and he's going to change. And then 3 months later, she's back in there. It's kind of like what the relationship is like between the doctors and the health insurance companies. Is the health insurance companies are, people don't realize this. Doctors get letters saying we've just cut your reimbursement for this particular procedure by 17% retroactive to last Monday. And this is something that they were using and it was getting maybe good results. Or we've had doctors, the health insurance company's like, yeah, you can, they have notes, letters from them saying, hey, this is approved way for you to do this. They do it for 3 years. And then the health insurance company comes back and says, oh, we're going to claw back $2.5 million out of your bank account because you were doing something that was not allowed. It's like, wait a second. I have this letter from you saying that we could do this. And their lawyers will say to them, we don't care. We're going to take the money from you. Like the doctors have zero control, and that's not good for the healthcare of our people, right? It drives them out of business. It makes them work for hospitals. And then they're even them, then when they start working for the hospitals, the large groups, they even have less control because now they've got a bunch of people that are just not even doctors telling them on both sides what they can and cannot do. This is not good for the American people. The American people have to take their health care back to them. They're like, well, I can't afford it. Look, I'm 57 years old. When I was 44 years old, I went to my primary care and my triglycerides were really high. Oh, you need to be on a statin. Then I started reading about what statins do. This is when I'm like age 47, 10 years ago. Today, and oh, triglycerides, high triglycerides, leading indicator of heart attack. Actually, no. When you really dive into it, today, without the use of any pharmaceutical drugs, through using over-the-counter stuff that you and I talk about all the time, right? Our doctors talk about all the time. Integrative functional medicine. My lipid profile is absolutely perfect. My cellular age at the age of 57 is 10 years younger. It's 47 years old. I'm in better health, blood panel wise, all the metrics and everything than I probably was in my 40s.
Well, and I just had a earlier this year coronary artery calcium score done, a CT scan
Hmm.
done to see if I had calcifications in my arteries at 57, which almost everybody does at this age with the
Yep.
standard American diet. I have zero calcium in
I'm there.
deposits
I'm
in
right
my
there with
arteries.
you. I'm zero. Yeah. Yeah.
And what do? I do integrative medicine,
Yep.
diet, lifestyle, supplements, and there is no excuse with the amount of information out there. Zero. No logical argument in the world why integrative medicine is not primary care and the baseline medicine for our entire medical system,
Amen.
except you cannot patent a lot of the natural stuff.
Hmm.
And these conversations that we have to have with patients about diet, lifestyle, exercise, they take more time, they're more nuanced.
Absolutely.
It's impossible to do in a 5, 7 minute, even 10-minute follow-up appointment. Impossible. So the
Hmm.
current system is all about volume, and they've got this BS about outcomes measures. We're gonna start reimbursing doctors based on results and the outcomes. But if you're testing the wrong outcomes, you're not making the system any better. You're not making people's
Yeah.
health any better. And I'll give you an example with osteoporosis, which is my expertise. You've got the outcomes now are moving towards, we're going to reimburse doctors. You're going to show success if the bone mineral density test is improving. Well, but a bone mineral density test is not the most dangerous thing about osteoporosis. It's whether or not somebody breaks a bone. And a bone density test only predicts 44% of women with osteoporosis who will fracture and only 21% of men. And by the way, if somebody's risk for falling, 95% of fractures occur because somebody falls. If somebody is at a low risk of falls, which can be evaluated, that bone density test only predicts about 5% of women with osteoporosis who will fracture. Right. And so they're tracking the wrong thing. And so it's not going to make the healthcare system any better. It just continues to entrench it into this model where you can see more patients. If all we're doing is tracking lab results and test results, well, that's not the patient sitting in
Yeah.
front of you. That's not the patient, the human dynamic. It's just machines. You could have machines doing this.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, that's where they want to go.
Yep.
Because here's the biggest expense now for the hospitals is the doctor. And and they're also the biggest pain in the ass for the hospitals because the doctors fight back. Trust me, they're figuring out how to use AI so that and I will tell you probably in the next, I would be surprised if we didn't see this in the next 2, 3 years where hospital groups are testing you just meeting with a computer screen and punching in a bunch of answers to questions and then AI spitting out the results.
I'm with you. That's coming.
Well, they can already, by the way, they can already use AI to do surgery on animals. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. So you want to tell me they're not going to try and figure out a way to use AI to do a joint replacement?
Well, and look, I think that there's going to be some incredible advances that AI can do. Like,
Absolutely.
I think
Yeah.
it's not all negative. I think there are going to be some
Agreed.
efficiencies and some benefits to that, but it's not going to be moving. I don't believe it's going to be moving the system in a healthier direction overall, where the
No.
patient outcomes overall are better. And
Yeah, and I'm a fan of AI. Like we utilize it, but again, like, there's always this give and take of everything. And I want the American public to just really understand. I'm not much of a conspiracy theorist. However, it's pretty abundantly clear about what's going on and the amount of money and power that the health insurance companies have and how that is impacting and influencing decisions that's based on for the betterment of the bottom line of those companies versus the betterment of the bottom line health of our society, of our citizens. And it's really sad for me because I see a group of doctors. Like I have such respect for what you've gone through, John. Like I couldn't survive 2 weeks doing what you did in college and med school and all of that. Like there's no way. Like anybody that goes through any of that stuff, kudos to you. Um, and it's really sad to me to see how we treat and have such little respect for what you have sacrificed for humankind to make it better. I mean, you've dedicated your life to people feeling better. I mean,
Well,
what more noble work can you do than
look,
that?
your empathy is really appreciated, and you get it. But I think what is so exciting for me is that people can say those words and talk to us about how wonderful they think doctors are and how they're so sorry the system as it is, the way it is, and
Mhm.
how we're not getting a fair shake, and you do so much, and all of that. And look, that's nice. But to me, what's nicer is that you're creating a solution. You're doing something about it. You're putting your time, your energy, your money
Mhm.
into creating solutions. So I want to tell people more about that, because I want to make sure they understand what you're doing, because it is
Sure.
so phenomenal and it has the potential to help so many people, as you mentioned.
Mhm.
Uh, Everybody needs to hear about it.
Yeah, so in our company, like I said, we're freeing 100,000 doctors. So what we do is we teach doctors the fundamentals of the business side of owning a practice. We get doctors that leave big hospital groups, but they want to start a practice, but they don't know how to do it. And so what we do is we teach them the fundamental business model so that they can grow and scale a successful practice. Now, it's not all about just being profitable. It's about returning power to the physician and the patient and returning them to their purpose. Okay. Now, the profitability, a lot of our doctors now, they've become very successful. They take their profits and they pour that back into their local community. So people that maybe can't afford the type of functional medicine, integrative medicine, or PRP or anything like that, what they do is they have quote unquote scholarship programs or a foundation that they've created that allow people who have chronic back pain that can't afford, say, a $15,000 bone marrow treatment done the right way with all the HBOT and all that stuff. Then they have
HBOT,
it so
just
that,
so people know, is
yeah.
hyperbaric oxygen.
Yes, thank you for translating.
Just want to make
I
sure.
forget I'm not talking to doctors primarily. Forgot. Thanks, John. Um, yeah, I mean all the things that are going to get better outcomes, and they get it so that when because they're profitable, they're able to then provide for people that are less fortunate to be able to have those procedures done without them costing like maybe 5% of what like they might have to pay a little bit. So we want to like this to me is the best way to go because this stuff is not going to get covered by the insurance companies. We don't want it covered by the insurance companies, in my view, because it'll be done incorrectly. We want to be able to return this back to the patient. So, for doctors that are listening, there's a lot of different resources, but the thing that I will always tell people about is if you want to talk with one of the people on our team, one of our ambassadors, and talk about your particular situation, our site is Mavericks, Mavrix, mavericksprofitsystem.com. They're both singular. And then if you do forward slash discovery, you can book a call with one of our ambassadors to talk about your particular situation. And it does look, we have helped people leave large groups, hospital groups. If they have an existing cash practice, scale it up. We work with a lot of the top people in the industry. And we're helping by educating the doctors and teaching them how to have a successful business and practice. We know that we can dramatically and positively serve their communities better, and we can improve the healthcare of local communities faster and better than we can by trying to change the insurance system. So, as I tell people, we're not here to fix the broken system, we're here to lead the exodus out of it.
I love it. I love it. And on the other side of the equation for patients, I don't know if you have this, but is there a referral type of network of doctors that if patients are listening to this, they can find doctors that might be able to help them?
We do not have a formal process. However, we have a chat bot on our site. They can ask. And if they leave their information, our team will do our best to forward you to someone. So we work primarily in what's called regenerative therapies, like if you have joint pain, knee pain, back pain, shoulder pain, things like that.
Yeah,
Um,
osteoarthritis, phenomenal. I used to do a
Osteoarthritis.
ton of
Yep.
that in my practice.
Yep.
Incredible for osteoarthritis.
Yep. PRP, platelet-rich plasma, which is your own blood cells. BMAC, bone marrow aspirate concentrate, which is your own stem cells, or adipose, which is belly fat. Those all work incredibly well. I've had 9 PRP regenerative
It-
procedures.
Even just dextrose prola, which is
Oh
the
yeah,
the
dextrose is
oldest the
fantastic.
oldest solution that's been used. That's I've had my whole, literally from the base of my skull, C2, that's the highest
Mhm.
vertebrae we can reach. Actually, the atlas, we can go up with a needle and hit the atlas, the base of the skull, and the lateral mass of the first cervical vertebrae, all the way down every level down to my sacrum. I went
Mhm.
to a colleague in Arizona once a month for 4 months. Got that done, about 80 injections every time because I had severe back pain from old injuries. I cracked my sacrum sledding with my son. I grew up playing competitive soccer, tons of injuries. I was a rock climber and had a couple of falls. I thought I'd never
Jeez,
run it.
John.
No, yeah, I beat the crap out of myself. I thought I'd never run again, and now I'm totally fine. I've done my knees on myself. I had a rotator cuff injury. I could reach it in my clinic, so I was able to do my own rotator cuff repair
Yeah.
without surgery. As long as
Yep.
it's not 100% tear, that regenerative injections can most likely fix it.
Yeah, I've had my back done, knee, elbow. I had a grade 2 tear in my elbow, which is basically the tendon almost torn off the elbow. I
Yeah.
was back hitting golf balls. I'm a former golf professional, so I played for 50 plus years. I mean, I've had my back's in better shape now than at 57 than it probably was at 47. Like according
Yeah,
to the
me
MRI.
too.
Yeah, I mean,
Amazing.
it's amazing. And then we also have a lot of doctors in the functional medicine, integrative medicine space, women dealing with menopause, weight gain, things of those nature, leaky gut, all this stuff. So really just go to our site and you can, if we have, leave us your information. If we
Yeah.
can refer you or find somebody, we will introduce you to them.
The way that I tell people, like, where is it that these types of cash-based practices, because insurance won't pay for them, do the best jobs? And it's very simple. Chronic diseases, conventional
Yes.
medicine does a horrible job at treating them. And by treating them, I'm not talking about just giving you a drug to mask and suppress the symptom. I mean really looking at the underlying cause and correcting it.
Mhm.
Depression, IBS, many of the just chronic things that people struggle with, and they're just not getting the relief that they want. That's where these types of services, among many other things, just do a phenomenal job. And it's great for me to hear that you are freeing up more doctors to do what works and what we
Yeah.
know actually heals people.
Yeah. I mean, and we could go on and on for hours about the stories, but yeah. I mean, again, I use me as an example. I'm 57 and I'm in better shape now. And again, I don't take any pharmaceuticals. It's not like I'm in the gym 5 days a week. I do yoga a couple of days a week. Like literally, that's the extent of my workouts these days. And my health markers are phenomenal. So you can have control. And you can be involved with the decision with your doctor. It's going to take a little bit of a shift of the way that you think about these things as a patient. But when you really look at the outcomes, if you look at how much time you're spending going to the doctor and the lack of results that you're getting and how much out of pocket you're spending, you'll actually save money by going to a functional integrative medicine doctor.
Yeah.
Where, I mean, routinely, like if you look at the average out of pocket that you'll spend for 18 months, say on joint pain, that joint pain can be gone in the span of a
Let
couple of
alone you're improving your quality of life.
yeah, let's not even yeah, and you'll start losing weight and like because you're able to walk and like
Yeah.
hopefully get off your diabetes. We have a couple markers that we track in our business. One, we always celebrate when a doctor becomes insurance free. The other one that we celebrate is when our doctors can get their patients off of statins and diabetes medications. Those are big wins for us.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Amazing. I love what you're doing. Tell us your website one more time.
sure. It's Mavericks, Mavrix, profitsystem.com/discovery. If you are a medical professional, you want to book a call with one of our ambassadors. Love to talk with you.
Thank you. Any final words you want to share before we say goodbye?
Look, we don't have to, Americans, there's a reason why our company's named Mavericks, right? Because America is a country of Mavericks. We basically decided that we wanted a better life and we came someplace that we didn't know anybody. We are not meant to be followers. We are meant to be people that lead. And I believe that this is an important moment in our country's history that we can do some pretty significant help of saving our country and the health of our country. And it just starts with one little step. If you're not happy with the results that you're getting, try a different path. Go down that path. John's got lots of great resources. He's got amazing interviews on his podcast of great, brilliant people that are doing amazing work. You don't have to settle. You do not have to just shrug your shoulders and say that's just the way it is. You have control and you have choices. So let us help you make those.
I love it. Thank you.
You got it, John. Thanks for having me.